Ah, fuck. You know what I hate about college? It's not actually doing college, because I've never been to college. It's the fact that when your friend group is the same age as you kind of have to deal time-wise with the same shit that they are. And it's always exam after exam after study time after study time after homework thing after homework thing. And it pisses me off that I can't spend time with my friends on the weekends sometimes. Granted, that's not always the reason why they have to cancel on Saturday night. I'm just so disappointed. Shut it, you little baddie. Dude, imagine being fucking French, dude. Not because of all, like, the modern shit about, you know, the whole immigrants thing and everything like that. I'm not commenting politically on that. It's just gotta be so awful to speak the worst language in this world and be such a fucking Euro poor piece of shit who smokes all day and makes fun of tourists. They get mocked in every sport. Their capital city is polluted and outdated. I don't even know what the fuck they're known for in terms of like their economic output. A disturbing amount of famous French people are just literal, well, I mean, I wouldn't call him a freak, but an unusual amount of famous French people are just Yes, I am now looking back at it aware that the word freak is not a good word to use for these folks because it's rather offensive to, you know, their existence as human beings. So really what I'm going to bring up is just the guy Terrer, which he allegedly ate an entire infant whole. So that's a French guy just being problematic and also maybe a little bit weird, justifiably. Even though it's really tough for me to say this. I think I hate them more than the fucking English. Europe in general, though, I've got a couple of opinions. I'm gonna try to tread a little bit lightly. Simply put, I think I would say Europe is to us what we are to the third world. You know how in the United States we're beginning, well, I wouldn't say beginning because we've been doing this for a long time. We've been outsourcing a bunch of manufacturing jobs to like China and a lot of Southeast Asia and India and stuff like that. The reason why we do that is because for some reason, the United States government still wants to profit off of the concept of slavery without our nation actually being culpable for it. If you've ever seen Chinese factory workers stacked on top of each other with almost no living space to themselves and breathing in mountains of pollution, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Of course, in the modern political climate, it's a little bit less China, but those conditions actually get worse the further down you go in Southeast Asia. Or at least the less wealthy the nation is that we outsource to. Now, what makes the United States this way to Europe is that basically any first world job that actually gets shit done and built and like made to withstand first world infrastructure conditions, that's all made in America and then shipped to other places like Europe. Also, ignore the fact that so many people die because there's no air conditioning in Europe as well, but that's a completely different story. Europe also outsources us here in the United States for defense contracting. Even though that's getting reduced a little bit more nowadays, that's still majorly true. But also, because we have to be productive for them in this way, they have to pay more taxes to their governments because their governments need the money to actually be capable of functioning. In return, the governments actually support the quality of life of the citizens that are inside of it. That's true for like the Nordic countries, that's true for Germany, that's true, I guess, a little bit more or less than average for France, maybe a little bit less than average for, you know, Britain. But if you look at the statistics, Europeans on average get paid less than Americans, at least net, because so much of it goes to their taxes, but their quality of life is kind of technically better. I do specifically love the state that I live in, though. In a lot of ways, it doesn't really even matter what my state's political affiliation is or anything like that. I just like the fact that I get to live in one of the most beautiful places in the United States. Funny though that I should mention states. You know, not too long ago when I was trying to cook up some concepts for some good videos to have in the future, I was thinking of doing like a series about US states and like kind of making fun of them. The first one was going to be Rhode Island. And while researching it, I found out a lot of things come from Rhode Island. You guys know Newport's named after Newport, Rhode Island. You know, Brown University, Rhode Island. You know, Quahog from Family Guy, Rhode Island too. Not a terribly interesting state though, otherwise, you know, besides those facts. I was at the Maverick today getting gas right before I went over to do my run. And you know how they have these, the screens on the gas pumps now that just like advertise shit to you while you're pumping the gas? For some reason in the ad, some girl said that like their hot dogs are the best that she's ever had. And I will tell you, after having eaten several Maverick hot dogs before, some of those times against my will, Maverick hot dogs ain't all that. It's like the biggest fucking lie ever. I mean, they're okay, but like, you know, if you're gonna market for your own products, understand your demographic. Like, there's gonna be truckers there and people that are on a budget and people that are traveling. Why can't you just market on the nutritional value, or just that the fact that it's a relied upon meal by most people, and you know, you just got some that are better than the rest? It doesn't have to be the best hot dog ever. I'm just saying, you just gotta say that it's a hot dog that you can eat that's not shit. It follows the trend, obviously, of advertisers going out of their way to not be honest about the products that they're marketing. I don't think there ever was a time where marketers ever thought of being earnest with anybody that actually looks at their ads. But if we could bring that around, then they could improve their reputation, even if the numbers stay the same. Hey, listen, I know how fickle YouTube can be with what kind of videos it recommends you guys, but it seems like it only really wants me to make peak videos. Now, me personally, I'm kind of okay with that as long as I still get to talk to you guys. But if I do want to make a video playing a different video game, like I did last time, the engagement has to follow suit. What can I say, man? So if you folks have decided to hit the subscribe button, for which I'm grateful for, please also press the bell notification so that you can get notified when I make another video that isn't necessarily what the YouTube algorithm wants to recommend to you. Of course, that's your choice, but I just want to say that I'm grateful for all of you either way. I've been wanting to talk about this for a hot minute now, but there's kind of no easy way to approach this topic without like having it go down like a controversial road, you know, one side or the other. But I think by factor of me not being involved with the situation in and of itself at all might make it appropriate for me to just give my pedestrian opinion on it. Y'all know how Idubbbz supposedly fell off? Most people would tell you that that began with the whole Sam Hyde documentary thing, and it all went downhill from there. And I would be inclined to agree with you until you look a little bit more closely at what his other two documentaries were about. I think Sam Hyde kind of called it when he pseudo-clocked that Idubbbz was just trying to do documentaries about people that are cut from a certain, maybe like antisocial cloth to do his documentaries on. And I'm also inclined to say that that's not an incredibly ethical thing to do, is like, you know, kind of make these documentaries about people that have it tough in life because they tried to do well at YouTube but have failed somewhat miserably, or just have made content that has made them a little bit strange. To me, those documentaries are less about actually helping those kinds of people out of their holes and reviving their YouTube careers, as much as it is making people understand why those people are so weird in the first place. It's like Ian was trying to farm lol cows in a way, at least of his own making, by introducing them in the light in which he did. Now, Sam Hyde is not the most ethical person either. I mean, you know, if you take a look at his content, it's kind of But because specifically of the demographic of his fans, which, by the way, you could reasonably say are kind of in the same wheelhouse as what Idubbbz fans used to be like, Idubbbz just can't win online in any kind of popularity metric. He has essentially, and this is from an objective viewpoint, I guess, or rather maybe from the viewpoint of a lot of different people who are looking in on this situation, it seems as though people are perceiving that he's too woke for the based crowd, but not respectable enough as a human being, apparently, for the woke crowd. And it certainly doesn't help that he's taking the bait, the rage bait, and is trying to explain away the whole situation about his wife being an OnlyFans model, him failing at making Creator Clash 2 work because he wants to play it too safe, yada, 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 yada. You can kind of see in the videos that he's making nowadays, which I don't get recommended often, but I did go out of my way to see how he was doing last week. You can see in his current videos, at least while he's working, making YouTube videos, that he is very, very, very unhappy right now. Even though one might say that, like, maybe morally his situation isn't very fair at all, it does make sense why he's in the situation that he's in today. I'll be the first to admit that, I used to actually go out of my way to watch all of the Filthy Frank videos and the Max Mofo videos and the Idubbbz videos that they all did together. And that was all the way back in a time when being edgy wasn't synonymous with being cringe. And also at a time when things, okay, I gotta be careful how I word this, when things that shouldn't have been acceptable were more acceptable. I mean, you guys, if any of you guys watched Filthy Frank, you know how much that guy used the N-word, how much that guy just was casually racist all the time, using problematic language, talking down on women, and, just generally doing vulgar stuff, which, isn't the YouTube meta anymore for good reason. But now, as an adult, I understand the need for Idubbbz to attempt to rebrand himself as someone who wants to detach himself from the things that he used to do in the past. It's just, in some cursed way, this world has found out how to punish him for trying not to be the bad guy anymore. And I think because of that specifically, this whole situation is just, like, really unfair. Man, YouTube used to be so different. Even though YouTube didn't have, this whole AI algorithm stuff trying to determine the best videos for someone to watch back then, there was still some way to serve a meta on the platform. And most often, it was doing the same thing that we're still doing in the future to get views, which is doing just like shocking and, maybe even evil shit to get people's attention. I'd say that that's more prevalent on the short form content side of stuff, especially depending on the platform that you're searching on. But at that time, that was the way that you brute forced views. I mean, Chad's literal name, Chad from Cold Ones, his literal channel name used to be anything for views, and he did do anything for views, dude. But nowadays, it's not so much about how far you're willing to go, but strategically, what are you going to make your content about that, coincides with something popular? Which is, the reason why I'm putting this to peak instead of Skyrim like I initially intended. It just seems more nowadays that instead of me making the content that I want to make and people naturally coming towards that, YouTube wants me to make the content that it wants me to make in order for me to bring more ad revenue to the platform. In that specific way, I think entertainment has become majorly undemocratized.